over the moon. If your man shall hit a star.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Better Together, sharing our lupus stories. Better Together is the gathering place to share our experiences of managing lupus and living our best lives. Today, we'll be talking about holiday nutrition. Well, not just for the holidays, because we eat every day, but as a lupus warrior, we know we need to think about nutrition all year round, but this is for us. And I am your host, Chanel Gabriel, poet, singer, co-host of the Hydroxychloroquine's podcast on living with lupus. Since my diagnosis in 2004, in between battling hospitalization and other setbacks, I've been committed to encouraging those living with lupus, from appearing in articles on women's health to running support groups. And I'm so excited to be joined by our medical host, Dr. Michaela Bayard, who is about this work. She is a board certified rheumatologist, thinking about us, taking care of us so much that she is called the Lupus Doc on Instagram. She's at walks in these streets and looking amazing doing it. Everyone, if you can use the chat, feel free to say woo and show some love to Dr. Michaela Bayard. Excuse me.
Hi, Chanel. Thank you for that warm welcome. I am so looking forward to tonight and this excellent lineup of guests, and I know it's going to be a great show. So as Chanel said, I am your medical host for Better Together. I am a board certified and practicing rheumatologist, which means I spend most of my day working on diagnosing and building management plans and really focusing on partnering with individuals living with autoimmune disease. So when we talk about autoimmune disease, as many of you know, a major one is systemic lupus erythematosus, or better known as lupus. And you may know me as the Lupus Doc from the content on my Instagram page at the Lupus Doc. And as you may have seen, I'm really driven to build community, share lupus facts, build awareness, and I can't think of a better way to do this than with Chanel, our in-house lupus advocate and warrior. So if you're returning from last week, welcome back. And if you are a new viewer, you are in for a great time. And please, as Chanel said, join in the chat. We're going to be unpacking some really important facts about nutrition, and we have an expert dietitian with us today, so we have someone to direct all our questions. And it's funny because I was just in the office today, and one of my patients asked, so what are 2 things I can do to eat better with my lupus? So I hope they are tuned in, Chanel.
Oh, I hope they are too. I mean, we have the lupus nutritionist herself, okay? So if you are living with lupus, this is somebody that has some really good advice and good thoughts. She's a registered dietitian, Tanya Fryrich, and we have 2 of her clients. One of her clients, Madi Gonzalez, who she's taking care of, who's given some advice and talking about her experience. And we have our patient advocate, Shelby Connors Williamson, who will also be talking about how changing her diet improved her health. So, Dr. Michaela, I know that the holidays are a fun time for all of us, and we really enjoy them, but definitely thinking about how difficult it is to try to think about what you're eating, right? You mentioned that you had a patient that asked you what are 2 things. And I know for me, and I don't know about any other folk living with lupus out there, but I know when I first got diagnosed, I definitely did hey, hopefully I can cure myself by going insert diet here. Okay. I tried shakes. I tried smoothies, all these kind of things. And of course, a couple of days later, I got sick. So wow. Is that an experience that you've seen, Dr. Michaela?
You know, it's a great question. I think that we're all trying to integrate wellness and, holistic measures into our health. And sometimes we want to believe that that's, what's going to take care of everything. But I think as we go through the show, a lot of our discussion is balanced. The nutrition part is huge. It can really help. But, we want to make sure that's complementing the right medical care and that you're really working with your rheumatologist or whoever your healthcare provider is to make sure whatever changes you're making are safe and really going to help your care. So I think that's the hard piece about switching. And I think you had shared with me before you kind of were trying no meds at that point.
Yeah, so I think sometimes it's really scary to be somebody that's never been on medication and all of a sudden you're taking all of these things and you kind of go the other extreme, right? Where you're trying really hard to just figure it out and make it all work. And that was a scary thing. So I thought maybe if I could have control over what I'm eating, maybe that'll make me feel better. And that sense of control was something I think I really looked forward to. And I think I thought I was getting from that. But of course, making sure that I'm well. And I didn't tell my rheumatologist either. So she definitely kind of freaked out and barked at me when I finally told her all the things that I did and not trying to take medication. And so just, are there any similarities that we should all follow? Are you seeing some things that people living with lupus maybe need to think about? I know we're going to talk a lot about this, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think that a big part of understanding nutrition specifically is, and Tanya will tell us later, but is really just figuring out what you're doing first. I always ask the patients I'm working with to start to journal and kind of map out not just what you're eating, but when you're eating and what your habits are. Because when we see that, or you go to a dietitian like Tanya that we're going to meet later, then they can start to really make a plan about what to adjust.
Well, I guess it's great that this time, those are some really, really good things for us to think about. And I feel like we should bring in our first guest. I think we should do that. Yeah. So we have a wonderful guest coming in. Shelby is a lupus advocate, is also someone that has gone through a lot of different, the gamut of living with lupus, right? And she has a really great story about how she changed some things in her diet that really impacted how she feels. So right now I'm going to welcome to the virtual stage Shelby Williamson.
Yay.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Shelby. So glad to have you. Oh my goodness.
Here.
I know we're here talking about holiday nutrition, but we're kind of also thinking about it in general. Holidays are a time where we do the comfort food thing, but we're thinking about just in general. And you have such a great story about how your diet impacted your lupus. But please, before we even get started, feel free, please tell us your story. Tell us your lupus story.
Okay, so my story really started in 2012 when I was a senior in high school. I started breaking out with rashes, just kind of feeling lethargic. And I'm just thinking, it's still puberty. I'm 18, I'm still going through body changes. So, fast forward 5 years, I go to college, I graduate in 2017, I start my new job. I was living away from my family, which was very stressful. I started this new job that was stressful, and I didn't really have a sense of work-life balance. And ultimately, I think the stress really started to weigh on me. And the rash started to come back. I started to have joint pains. I started to feel that lethargic feeling again. And I went to the doctor. And at the time, I was in North Carolina. So I went to Duke Medical Center. And I'm thinking, I'm Duke. It's like the top premier medical center. Like, they have to have all the answers for absolutely everything that's going on. And the doctor, she looked at me and she said, well, why don't you try to change your laundry detergent? That was her answer. She didn't ask, she didn't run a panel. She didn't refer me, nothing. And so in 2018, I moved back home to Maryland. And my mom saw that I just wasn't right. And she referred me to her doctor, to her primary care physician, who is a brown woman, so she instantly, when she heard me discuss what I was feeling, she instantly knew something was wrong. And so she ran every panel, whatever, A through Z. And sure enough, probably like a week later, she came back and said that I had some markers that indicated that I had lupus. And so from there, she referred me to a rheumatologist who also ran tests to verify that's what it was. And at the time, I didn't even know that my kidneys and my organs were starting to shut down. So my rheumatologist, once he got the results, it was like 10 o'clock at night. I'll never forget it. And this block number calls me from my phone, and I'm just like, who is this? And he's like, it's your doctor. You need to go to the emergency room. You need to go to Georgetown. They're all ready for you. He wouldn't even tell me why. He just said, you need to go. I get there, and then, somebody in the ER explains that they got the message that, basically you're like slowly dying. They said it in a very nice way. And I was hospitalized for 3 days. And they just, they were bringing me back. They were bringing me back. So yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Take a moment. Take a moment.
Okay. So it took a long time for me to accept that I have this illness because it scared me so bad.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Shelby.
And I know that there's a lot of us listening that have been where you've been, that have been so scared and terrified, and especially when you're dealing with doctors that haven't helped, right? And you're finally getting that treatment. That's a life change. It's a big life change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it took me a really long time to accept it. And my family supports me. They are the best. They support me in every way possible. And so, anyways, okay.
No, but I just want to say you're so strong, Shelby. And from a medical perspective, sticking with the need to find a provider who hears you and is listening to you, that's really shows a lot of about you and, how persistent you are, because it can be hard to find that provider who really is listening to you.
Yeah, it was pretty difficult. So once we finally, found out, they put me on all these different medications, just like you said, Chanel. And it was hard going from being perfectly healthy to taking like 5, 6 medications a day. And we pushed through that. And so I know last year, for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe because I was planning for my wedding, it seems like I lost my mind. And I said, you know what? Forget these medicines. I'm going the holistic route. I'm going the CBD, THC route and just whatever. And I ended up putting myself back into the hospital doing that. So fast forward to, I was trying to find ways to improve myself because my rheumatologist, he's a good rheumatologist. However, he's not in the nutritional world. He's in the, I'm going to give you medicine and we would, hopefully that's the answer.
That's
But
what
it's
we're
not.
gonna give you, right?
So I was like, I need to find, different things. So I tried working out. That caused me to have flare-ups because it was too harsh. It was too harsh on my body. So I ran across Tanya's page on Instagram and I looked through all of the stories. I did my background check. So I signed up for her program. And, through her program, she taught me that, eating healthy can be the answer in addition to your medicine. You don't have to get rid of everything, but here's alternative options. And so, sticking with her program and, I started yoga, which was a good form of, exercise. Yes.
Love me some yoga.
Yeah. Yes. Love yoga. And sticking with that, I recently went to the rheumatologist and he ran my test. And for the first time in like 4 years, maybe, my markers were in range. So I'm good. Like, I'm on a good track and I'm feeling really good.
That is so good to hear. Oh, I mean, and I think that you said something that was really important, the idea that these small changes or these different changes can make a difference. But I'm just curious, I wanted to pull Dr. Michaela. Is it something that like are doctors able to learn more about nutrition? Is that a part of y'all practice? As you go through, because I think Shelby brought up such a good point. Like sometimes the rheumatologists, they just got the medication.
Yeah, I mean, I can see from your perspective, Shelby, how, you want this holistic, full spectrum care. I think that our priority is making sure that you're on the right medications and we're checking the right labs and examining you. But I do think that those discussions, even if you're getting information or input from a consultant or another specialist like Tanya Freirich, you should still pull those conversations in with your rheumatologist. So I think the idea is really having a team, right? And a team of people that can give different pieces that are important to your lupus care. Because to be honest, as a rheumatologist, I rely on the primary care doctor and maybe the kidney doctor and really a team of people to get the best care. So as long as you're updating from these other providers, I think everyone can help.
Yeah. He actually, he said, "Well, what are you doing? You must be relaxing at home." And I was like, "No, I found a nice dietitian who knows what she's talking about." She referred me and pointed me in the direction that, I didn't tell him that he couldn't, but that's the truth. So, he kind of said, "Well, if it works, it works." And so it works.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, what has been the biggest shift for you? Because nutrition's huge. Like it could be what you're eating, but it can also be, as I mentioned earlier, like how you're splitting up your meals. Like what has been the biggest shift for you?
I think the biggest shift for me is, I think maybe like what I cook with.
Mm.
So I still eat the same things for the most part, but I found out that nightshade vegetables weren't the things for me, peppers. So I used to cook with a lot of peppers,
Mm-hmm.
cayenne pepper, and, spices,
Mm-hmm.
tomatoes. But I realized that was causing me flare ups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I substitute those things for maybe, different powder, like onion powder, turmeric, different things like that can assist in the flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
You
like
know,
adding, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was just going to say nightshade vegetables is a huge topic and it comes up all the time. And people always want to know how do they figure it out. So I'm interested to hear, what you did to kind of figure out if those were making you feel better or worse.
They were making me feel worse. I would eat dinner with something with a pepper in it and wake up the next day, fingers swollen, elbows, major joints were swollen. So once I cut those out, I was pretty good. And then I added the collagen peptides, got my joints moving some more. I incorporate that into my tea, coffee, just everyday type of thing. And it's been going well.
No,
Eh, Go ahead, Chanel.
No, I was gonna say that's I think it's so interesting because everybody's body is different and it's so interesting to hear what worked for you. And I I always say, wow, there's some things that I think we know are probably not great, Big Macs,
Yeah.
but I do think that that's really good of you being able to see and think about like what is it that I ate that actually caused the flare.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing what the results, of removing elimination, how that helps.
Mhm.
No, I think that it's really good, and I do notice certain things that I eat, do cause that. So do cause different things to flare up. So I think it's really important what you said, and thank you for sharing that. That paying attention to what we eat, period, and how and what we cook with, those are all indicators. I usually say like it's so important to like learn your body and
Mm-hmm.
learn how to pay attention to how it reacts to things.
Yeah. I mean, along that line, I really want to know how long it took you. I guess that was my question before you started to notice a difference. Was it like one meal or a week?
Well, no, I think our program was maybe around like 2 months. So Tanya suggested, kind of cook with it, see how you feel the next day. Right. And so then the next day, maybe go without it and see how you feel, like kind of, process of elimination.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the course of 2 months, I really realized that those were like a major culprit of my inflammation while I was eating, because I never really ate unhealthy anyways. Like, I'm not a big fast food person. So, it was challenging trying to unincorporate that in my meals, but I made it work.
No, it's helpful to know because I think sometimes when we think about eliminating a food, people think about cutting out for a week and then all of a sudden seeing changes. But you were really committed to do this for months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just so everyone knows, nightshade vegetables, and you can chime in, Shelby, include eggplant, tomatoes, bell peppers, potatoes. I'm sure Tanya will be able to tell us more about it, but they are vegetables that for some people can be the culprit in more inflammatory symptoms.
Yes.
No. I was going to say, what was the hardest thing for you to let go?
So I love spicy food, like the hot sauce, the cayenne peppers, the spicy tomato sauces, all of that. That was pretty hard. I'm still kind of, every now and then I dibble and dab, but nowhere near how I used to be.
So speaking of, switching it up or cheating a little on things, what are you going to do as the holidays approach?
Well,
A deep sigh.
fortunately enough for me, I think I might be the only person in my family that really likes spicy food. So when we gather, I'm the one that kind of adds it to my personal plate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really like a big deal, for them. So I think I'm pretty good. And sometimes if something has like peppers or tomatoes, I'll just like pick them off and put them to the side.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's so good. Thank you for like sharing just your journey through this. Cause I think that once again, like Dr. Michaela said, it takes a long time. I know for me, I know that I had to give up dairy because that for me really bothered my body. Like I noticed that it did not sit well with my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And some almond milk. Like after a while, I think, my body just stopped liking it. And so I think it was really important for me when I first started, and it sounds like you did the same, was to, just really pay attention to what my normal feels like
Mm-hmm.
and like start looking what happens and why certain things will bloat me or certain things would really like irritate, or I'd wake up and be flared up. I realized I couldn't eat after a certain time because that
Yeah.
would bother me as
Yep.
well. But it sounds like paying attention to your diet, even just doing that, of course, definitely with the guide of a professional, licensed professional, but also thinking about just in general, how do I feel when I eat this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's so true. You really have to tune into yourself. And I think the hard part, especially thinking about the holidays, is that, you're on the rush, you're on the go. And so, what is that like quick, easy snack that is still healthy and makes you feel good? Do you guys have tips about that?
Oh, well, I actually have a little snack right here. It's mine. Can you see? Let me
Oh, we
see.
can see kind of the white is blended in with the background.
Okay, there we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Yes. So, whenever I have that, like that salty type of, you want something salty, um, especially like when it's that time of the month and your cravings start to really like kick in.
Mm-hmm.
I go to my little seaweed snacks for that, craving type of thing. And so that's what I like snack on.
What
All
about
right.
you, Chanel?
I was gonna say, for me, I definitely, I'm my thing is I have a sweet tooth. And so I learned that cacao, which is not chocolate, cacao, that plays a role in some of the sweetness. So I use rice milk, dates for my sweetener as opposed to regular brown sugar, and I use cacao to kind of get my sweet tooth, my sweet fix. But oh wait, I just realized this. You mentioned it and you talked about it really quick. Didn't you recently get married?
Yes, I got married in April. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, he was my college sweetheart, and he's still my sweetheart,
Oh,
obviously. So, yeah. So, just to give a little short summary about that, he's been with me, from the beginning, even before the beginning of this whole lupus journey, and he's been super supportive. Like, never complains. So, just
we should
yeah.
have had you on last week when we talked about relationships. I see
Well,
that
if you ever circle back to that, you can call me.
love to. We have Monique Gormasi is actually tuned in right now too. So thank you. Well, speaking of, you brought your seaweed into the mix. We actually have a nice activity. We're going to bring our the lupus nutritionist in this conversation, and we have some baskets. We wanted to kind of think about the things that we snack on that would be really helpful, the things that make us feel better, that are we consider healthy snacks. And maybe Tanya Fryrich can kind of help us out in making sure that we're on the right track. But definitely so excited to have you, the lupus nutritionist, Tanya Fryrich. Welcome to the virtual stage. Hi.
Hello, how is everyone?
Thank you
Doing
so much.
great.
We're good. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you, thank you. And Shelby, thank you so much. You spoke so nicely of me, but also just like the doctor said, you put in the work. So I can give as much advice, but if you don't follow through and try it, then it's hard. So you put in the work and then you got the rewards. You figured out what works for you.
Yes, and we're definitely going to poke at you a little bit because I know we have a lot of questions, and some of it's around recipes, some of it's around that. So we have some questions towards the end, but everyone, please make sure you use that comment section and share some questions as we're continuing. We're going to take some time at the end to go over them, but right now we were commissioned to get a basket together of some things that we have in our kitchen, in our fridge, in our spaces that would be helpful, that we think would be helpful for somebody living with lupus or just in general. So I'm wondering, I don't know, where's your basket, Dr. Michaela?
I have it here. It might be cut out a little bit, but I'll pull the items forward. And so I'm excited to get the lupus dietitian's input. I don't know if you can see this, but this is steel cut oats or oatmeal.
Oh my goodness.
And then I also have, oh, we're twinning.
We should have checked this out before we came on here.
That's why we're co-hosts. And then this is a bottle of turmeric, which I get so many questions about, Tanya.
Yes, I would love to talk about that. But a comment on both of y'all bringing your oatmeal. So great choice, especially if you are preparing it at home because you can control the good things that you put in there and also prevent adding basically too much sugar. That's usually what happens when you buy it from outside. It's a great grain. If you do have to avoid gluten, just look for the certified gluten-free, but it has a lot of fiber and it helps you stay much more satisfied for longer than something that doesn't have too much fiber. So, in terms of talking about the timing of our meals and that sort of thing, having something that's a lot more satisfying with that fiber will help keep your sugar even, your hormones even. Insulin's a hormone. So great choice, y'all.
And I feel like the thing that I realized as an adult is that oatmeal can taste, exciting. You can add things into it. So growing up, I just had plain oatmeal, but I put fruit in it. I leave it overnight. There's ways to make it fun.
Oh, definitely.
Thank you. Okay, so we're on the right track. I put this one in, and this is kind of something that's not a thing. Or actually, no, Dr. Mikhail, you brought in turmeric. I know that there's a lot of questions about the anti-inflammatory properties in turmeric. Is that true?
Yes, definitely. There's actually been a recent study for people specifically with lupus nephritis and turmeric that it can be helpful. So turmeric is super anti-inflammatory. It's helpful for a lot of people, not only people living with lupus, but definitely if you can incorporate it in your diet more often, it is a great idea. You can season proteins like animal proteins with it. You can certainly use it in soups and chilies. I've actually even seen, if we're just blending everything together, I've even seen like a coconut turmeric oatmeal recipe,
Wow.
like a golden latte is one sort of thing. And it's kind of like that flavor profile for the oatmeal in the morning. So you can get creative with it.
Wow. Yeah, and I love the taste of it and I cook with it, but if you don't, I know it comes in tablets that you can take as well. So that's an alternative.
Yeah, definitely. Or put it in a smoothie and then you really don't taste it. There's so much other things, ingredients that overpower it.
Great.
No, that's great. I think I brought a bottle of water because everybody talks about you need to get 68 ounces each day, or you need 100,000 gallons of water. What is the actual amount that someone should be drinking?
It really depends on the person. I will say when we are even slightly dehydrated, we can feel a little tired. So for people living with lupus, where fatigue is something that you're struggling with, let's just mark that off the list. Let's make sure you're hydrated. Also, we always worry about the kidneys for people with lupus. So staying hydrated and having enough adequate water intake means that you're not asking your kidneys to work harder. So when we're dehydrated, they have to work harder. So we don't want to give them extra work. Also, honestly, if you're thinking about just feeling your best, staying hydrated is a really good place to start. Water is very easy to find. Now, in terms of how much do people need, it really depends on the person for sure. Depends on the season too. So let's say it's summertime, you might be sweating a lot, but wintertime with the heat going very high, that can be very drying too. So listen to your thirst. For those people out there, I've heard this before, who say, oh, I'm just not thirsty, and they only drink a tiny little bit. Sometimes you've actually basically ignored your thirst for so long that your body just gives up. So try to drink more water. Let's say starting with 6 glasses, 8 glasses of water a day is great. But those other things like tea, seltzer water, those count for fluids too. And then as you kind of get that habit in more ingrained, then you may find, oh, wow, I am much thirstier than I thought.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, Shelby shared the seaweed snacks, but what else? Well, Shelby, do you have anything else in your basket?
I do. Yep, I sure do. So I have my collagen peptides. Thanks to Tanya. So I didn't know what those were before the whole program. Never heard of them. And so essentially Tanya explained that they help with like your joints and the mobility. That's right, Tanya, right?
Yeah, you're right. So it can help with our joint health. So the collagen is something that's good to have for hair and skin and nails, but also our joints. And then when we start talking about gut health, it is also helpful for that. So sometimes people's diets are very deficient in collagen. Let's say our ancestor, maybe we're using all of the animal, cooking with basically the bones, the pieces of animal protein that had the joints and those kind of knobbly bits of animal bones that has collagen in it, the cartilage. And now we don't necessarily eat like that all the time. So it's great to replace that source that our body likes to use for our joints. So again, people living with lupus, we already have a little bit of a problem with our joints. We want them to feel the best they can. And so if the collagen can help us along that way. So good job, Shelby. I'm glad that that's still helping you.
Yes. Last thing, I have my bag of spinach. So that's like my favorite green vegetable because I can eat it all day. You can cut it up, put it in an omelet, have a spinach salad for lunch, saute it for dinner. It just keeps on going on. So that's a couple of things that I have in my basket.
Yeah,
Yes.
those dark leafy greens are so important to include. And we're in the season where they're actually in season. So if you like spinach the best, or kale, or collard greens, turnip greens, mustard greens, all of them are fantastic.
Perfect. That's so helpful. So we have some greens, we have something for breakfast, something we can use for dinner. But I guess close us out, Tanya. What is in your basket?
Great. Thank you for asking. So I do have a couple things in here talking about that collagen, actually. So one of my favorite things to prepare for myself is bone broth from scratch. But I understand that sometimes people do not want to put the time into that. That is okay. It takes a lot of time. It is a commitment. I put it in my Instapot. So I just kind of put it there and then it does its thing. But you can always buy there's so many brands. I'm not tied to this brand. I'm certainly not sponsored by any of these brands. These are just some that I have around. So feel free to find bone broth. This one, the reason actually I got this one is that it has turmeric and ginger. So yay, we got those spices working hard for us again. Another thing that I would recommend to people, and again, not tied to this brand, but kombucha, any brand, can be a really good way to get probiotics in your diet. So probiotics are the good bacteria. Prebiotics are the type of fiber that the good bacteria like to eat. So we want both of them in our diet. Kombucha is just a very easy way, but there's tons of ways to get probiotics in your diet. Let's see what else I brought. Okay, so on the go snacking. If you cannot find a fresh fruit, or if you just want something to put in your purse, I brought a little like fruit snack. So it's basically just dried fruit in kind of the form of a granola bar. So this is a really easy way to just increase your intake of some fresh fruit. Well, it's not fresh, but fruits and veggies. And sometimes they even have veggies added in here. And then let's see what else I've got.
Full basket over
Tanya,
there.
can you comment on fruit? Because that's a question that always comes up because people are like, oh, I can't have any sugar. Can you comment on that?
Oh, great question. So yes, it's hard. It's hard unless you went to school for nutrition to kind of differentiate all of these messages that exist out there. So refined sugars are not so great for us. We don't want too much of them. Just as I was saying about keeping our blood sugar steady, when we're consuming something like just white sugar, brown sugar, like you see it, the ingredient is just sugar, or any of those added ingredients, high fructose corn syrup, there's a million names for it. That really sends our blood sugar way up and very fast. And then we usually crash back down. But fiber, it's a natural thing that exists in our fruit and packages that sugar. So then your body is doing an activity, basically. It's breaking down those pieces of fruit, tearing apart the fiber and the sugar. So it has to work a little bit longer. It's not as easy to absorb and digest as something like a spoonful of sugar that you put in your coffee. So that packaging of the natural fruit, let's say you eat an apple, is so much better for your blood sugar because, besides all the vitamins and nutrients, of course, but your blood sugar reacts very differently. Now it's not a roller coaster. It's more of, let's say, a little molehill, and then it kind of goes back down. And if you pair those fruits, any type of fresh fruit with a protein, then it's even better for you because now you've got a little bit of carbohydrate, fiber, protein. Your blood sugar looks a lot more steady. So thank you for that question. That's a great.
That's so helpful. And, just to interrupt before we get to the rest of your basket, we actually have a great question from one of our viewers, Latasha, who's asking, is seaweed good for you? I think she was intrigued by Shelby's basket.
Yeah. So it is a great snack. Seaweeds in general, there's so many of them as options out there. They do have a lot of vitamins. They even have some minerals, so iron and copper. We don't want to overdo it. Like, do not go out there and buy a 24-pack of seaweed and just eat it day in and day out. You may get too much iodine from it, and some of them are a little high in sodium. But as an on-the-go snack, it is so easy and it's giving you a lot of nutrition. So whenever we're thinking about snacks, we always want to try to get something as unprocessed as able. That fruit snack, for example, is great for if you just need to throw something in your backpack. But if you can have a fresh fruit, even better. And seaweed, those little seaweed snacks are pretty unprocessed. They're just drying it. Sometimes they put a little bit of seasoning. So those sorts of snacks are, again, a step up from, as Chanel said at the very beginning, like we all know Big Macs aren't good for us. That fast food where it's really, really ultra processed, if we can step away from that and go to minimally processed, it's a better choice. Yeah,
That's
thank you.
such a great takeaway, Tanya. Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, thank you. And I think sometimes we do get caught up in what's considered healthy. Can I ask another question that I know I'm not sure was there before, but what do you think is something that people say is healthy that might not be as healthy?
Oh dear. So I'm not throwing shade, but maybe some people that exist on the internet that are not so well versed in nutrition will say in one sentence, eat all natural, organic, clean, and have a lot of these words associated with it. And then they'll also say, and take my detox tea or take this supplement. So it's very mixed messages there. That's one thing that I would say just to be wary of. There's a lot of like iffy claims about some of these detox teas, detox shakes, things like that. Our body does a fantastic job detoxing, and we really don't. I would be wary of those. They're not very regulated either. So sometimes they may have weird things in some of those supplements.
No, thank you so much. And I mean, that is so important. I do think that there's so many different things that are out there promoting these diets, and it is really challenging to know what's real and what's not. So definitely want to make sure we're taking the time to really think about and do the legwork and figuring out what is best for us. And Shelby, you definitely talked about doing that and like researching and doing a background to really understand what's there. So we're going to actually bring in a client of yours, somebody else that can talk a little bit about the work that about her story. And we're going to bring in Mari Gonzalez, who has been a lupus warrior. Of course, we got to shout out all of our lupus warriors out there, but also done a lot of advocacy, has led support groups and done a lot of work in the lupus advocacy community. So welcome to the virtual stage. Show some love in the chat and keep asking those questions. We're going to get to them at the end. To Mari Gonzalez. So happy to have you, Lupus Spoons.
Hi, how are you, ladies?
Good.
I'm so excited.
We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. My lupus story began 10 years ago. I used to work at downtown Chicago. I'm from Chicago, and I used to work in downtown. And for my hour break, for my hour lunch, I would walk for 45 minutes in just downtown, be on the phone with my grandparents or with my mom. And it came that in August, in the middle of August, one year in 2012, I couldn't do that walk. I got to the building right next to me and I called my mom and I'm like, I can't walk. Like my legs are killing me. I used to take the bus and train to work and it was the most painful. It became so painful that it was from my waist down, all my joints, my feet. I would get home and I would ask my nephew, can you please rub my feet? And before he would barely touch them. And I was screaming. I'm like, every bone in my foot, they feel like they're broken. And he's like, this is not right. And he was little. He just turned 25 10 years ago. He was 15. And so I went to the doctor. And like I said, that was in the middle of August. By September, the beginning of September, she had done blood work and stuff. And she's like, I think you need to see a rheumatologist. And I believe you have some form of arthritis. And I'm like, okay, arthritis, grandma has it, my mom, my daughter. I was like, okay, I know what arthritis is. And so I took that blood work to the rheumatologist, and with his back towards me, because he's looking at my labs and he's looking on his desk and stuff, he turns around, he goes, you know, you have lupus, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I just cried because I only knew one lady at that time that has lupus, and it was tearing her up. It's still tearing her up. So I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna become her. That's all I knew. But I still didn't know what lupus was. I knew it was some disease that was tearing up this woman that we totally love. And so I just went, and he was just like, just stop. We're just going to take, now this is in October already, you know, and he was just like, we're just going to take some more blood work. We're going to take some more urine. And because the first actor didn't take urine, so he's like, let's check. And I'm just crying, crying, crying. And I'm going to be like Shelby. My tears are going to come out. And in October 9th, 2012 at 1:01 p.m., I was leaving to lunch, and I just walked away from my desk, and the person that was taking over my desk said, Marty, you have a phone call. And it was that doctor. And he was just like, it's positive. You have lupus. We need to get you on medicine. And my whole hour of lunch was just crying in attorney's arms and secretary's arms and being like, what in the world am I going to do now? Because again, I didn't know what it was. So I just said, nope, I'm just going to educate myself and figure out what this is. Because no one at that time, no one in my family had it, or they weren't speaking of it. Because now that I've become so vocal about it, I put it all over social media. All my family knows. Now I'm learning that so many people from both my mom and my dad's side both have lupus. And it's just like they go, we never talked about it because we thought we were the only ones. And so I I love that, you know, I got the power, and it's just like the in Spanish is the ganas, like the desire to learn. My daughter was away at school, and she's 3.5 hours away. She was near the border of Illinois and Iowa, and there was like no way I was going to tell her why she was away. So in that time, I came home and I broke it to my mom, my nephew, and my brother, and I said, "Don't you dare tell my daughter." But I needed to get it off my chest to say I have this illness and I have no clue what it is. I have no clue. And so I just educated myself so much. I read so many books. I got into Dr. Thomas's Lupus Encyclopedia and Donna Orm's When Lupus Throws You for a Loop. I was just reading all these books and just trying to learn as much as I could. So when my daughter came home for a break, we went out to dinner, and I told her, and she broke down. She was crying, and she was upset because I waited so long to tell her. And she's like, why did you wait? And I said, there's no way in the world that you were so far away. You didn't have the support, you know, system over there far away in school. So I just got so into educating myself, and I wanted to share my experience with other people that the rheumatologist, that first rheumatologist said, hook up with Lupus Society of Illinois. And I did, and that was the best relationship I have ever gotten into. They have webinars, they have support groups, they have, you know, grants. They offer so much for us in the lupus community and to our families. It's not just us patients. And so I did, and I told them, you know, you have so many support groups, but they're far away from my home. Do you have anything closer? And so I started a support group in 2019, and now I facilitate 3 support groups under them.
That is so amazing.
Yeah.
That is
So
amazing.
I don't want anyone to go to the doctor and feel like I did that time, alone and uneducated on this. I was so ignorant to this illness. And now it's just like I advocate and I tell people, when you go to the doctor, I will go with you if you want to. You can put me on video and we can, you know, talk to the doctor and get everything, you know, just get educated, because ignorance, when you're ignorant to something, it brings so much fear.
Yeah, and I think you did a really good job, and the work that you do is so important. in being an activist and advocate for others living with lupus. So thank you so much, Madi, for what you're doing.
Thank
Just
you.
before we only have a few minutes left, but I did want to ask you just like, what are the ways that you, took charge of your diet? How's Tanya helped you, and how have you just shaped your diet? We only have a couple minutes left, but I really wanted it to
Yeah.
think
The
about
same way you ladies have your basket, I have mine too. She's got me eating gluten-free pancakes. I eat gluten-free pancakes, and then they're so expensive to buy. So she was like, Marty, just make a bunch of them and just put them in the fridge or the freezer. Hello, I do. And then I add almond flour, and I add grounded flaxseed to help you stay regular. And and then I like crunchiness, so I even added almond slithers. And they're a little bit big, so I break each one of them up into like 3 little pieces. But she's got me eating oatmeal. Like, my mom makes the best oatmeal, but now I add fruits and coconuts, flakes, and then she's got me. I have my pancakes, and instead of putting syrup, I get frozen frozen fruit. And when you warm them up, a lot of juices come out of the fruit. So that's my syrup on top with my fruits. Yeah, and I drink a lot of water. And recently, I quit coffee because of the acid reflux. And so before then, I had stopped having sugar, and then I stopped coffee. So now it's black or green tea. But I also do my collagen peptides. I love that because our nails get really soft and our hair gets very thin. So it helps us.
Oh no, thank you. And Tanya, why did you choose these foods for Madi?
Yeah, great question. So Shelby mentioned it a little bit at the beginning. Basically, I work with each one of my clients to figure out what works for their body. So, what recommendations I give for one person doesn't work for someone else. We are all very different. And I'm sure, as maybe you have noticed, meeting other people with lupus, we all have different symptoms, we have different presentations. So our bodies also really thrive with different foods. So our conversations one-on-one kind of led us to figure out, okay, for Shelby, for example, nightshades are really problematic. And for Madi, we were talking about, okay, how can we basically upgrade breakfast to be as nourishing as possible? But it really depends on the person. Yeah. So it's a journey. Let's just say that. And I also did want to confirm, just as what was said before, always, I'm part of a care team, but always have those open conversations with your rheumatologist, with your other doctors. We're all working together to find you the best treatment plan. So nutrition is, let's say, one note in the song, but there's other notes for you to feel your best.
That's so true, Tanya. I just wanted to ask one question, but then I also have a viewer question. Can you comment a little bit on schedules? Because I think people sometimes limit nutrition discussions to just what you're eating, but I think timing has a big part in it.
Yeah, definitely. So if you are going way too long between meals, like life gets busy and maybe you skipped your lunch because you're working through it, or you're taking care of kids, whatever is affecting it. When we go too long without eating, one, it can really sap our energy. Two, talking about acid reflux, if that's something that you struggle with, sometimes our stomach starts to produce more acid. That can irritate acid reflux. We can feel more gassy and more bloated if we go too long without eating. Also, you're missing out on the opportunity to nourish yourself, to have another place where you're getting vitamins and nutrients. And back to the blood sugar balance, going too long without eating sends our blood sugar a little crazy. Unfortunately, sometimes people with lupus are struggling with weight gain, especially because of those corticosteroids. So sometimes people feel as though, oh my goodness, I can't gain any more weight. And then they start being a little too restrictive with the meals or skipping meals. And I promise you that is not the route to go. You will not feel your best that way.
Thanks for commenting on that. We actually have a viewer question that's asking about ashwagandha, and I believe that's winter cherry. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So the viewer question, there is a lot of confusing information out there. And also when you're looking something up and you see, wow, all of these people are saying it's so good for me. Again, that's one population that maybe it is really good for. For people with lupus, it is a nightshade vegetable or a nightshade family that includes fruits and vegetables. And to your earlier point of the other things it includes, goji berries, and tomatillos, tomatoes. There's quite a few things in that family. So for some people, that may be problematic. For others, it could be okay. So everything is really on an individual basis. I would try not to go too far down the rabbit hole of, okay, these are all the things that on the internet that it says are good. I'm just going to do all of the good things because unfortunately, sometimes those good things for people living with lupus or other autoimmune diseases are not so helpful, especially immune stimulating things can be problematic.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know that there was a question. Somebody asked it for Shelby earlier. Just curious, where do you find the recipes that you use now that you've switched out some of these things that were in your diet? What were some recipes, and how do you find them?
My mom actually, like I don't use a cookbook. I kind of just recreate things that I've been eating my entire life. Um, and I can use an example. So one thing I did kind of make last week was, I don't know if you've heard of zuppa toscana soup from Olive Garden. Well, it's like it's a soup from Olive Garden, and it has kale and like ground sausage, and it's like a cream base. So I love that soup in my past life, pre-lupus, right? But in my post life, I still want the soup because it's such a great soup. But I've switched out the cream for and like almond based cream. Can't even tell the difference. Great. The kale is still there. And instead of the pork ground sausage, I use like ground turkey, ground turkey sausage. And it's just like just subbing different things out. And that's really it.
Wow, I might steal your recipe, Shelby,
Yes.
or come hang out with you and your mom.
Okay.
But I wanted to say thank you to all of you. We could keep going for hours with nutrition questions, but you can find Tanya online. She is the lupus dietitian. Shelby and Mari, thank you for being so open and vulnerable with your stories. And again, thanks to all our viewers, my co-host, Chanel. We want to thank our sponsor, Biogen. We are just so excited to have you all here tonight. We're excited for another week. Next Tuesday. Sorry, I'm ready to do it tomorrow. So next week, we're going to be talking about creating your self-care support team during the holidays. So just another exciting topic. And now we have a beautiful closeout from our in-house spoken word artist and singer, Chanel.
Be careful. I know you're loving it. Their recipe is perfect, serving several billion smiles a day because feeding the world is big business. Using the least expensive products, adding chemicals to make it all delicious, food filled with preservatives so that 10 years later it's still being digested. Vegetables and fresh fruit go neglected. It's what happens when healthy practices aren't in place. And you have no idea the amount of money they make off people's desires for something quick to eat. Lunch and dinner, junk for all meals, but then you wonder why we move a little slower and we have a cold we just can't shake. Our immune system isn't fed off of oil and grease, too much of it the body can't take. And even salads have enough calories to equal fries and a fried filet because salad dressing is saturated over every leaf. And these are the things that were supposed to be a treat. But they've tricked us into thinking that a life on fast food is actually good living. We order everything without thinking, then hope we're doing something healthy by getting a diet Coke, but we're a fast-paced society. We could be racing to our doom, but part of it has to do with what it is we consume. Take time to consider the impact of everything you do, the dedication you have for success at work. Dedicate to what you take as food. Thank you so much. And please, everyone, make sure you're taking a moment to follow us on Better Together Lupus on all social media platforms. Go to bettertogetherlupus.com, and also please click the link there for information on research regarding lupus. Optionsforlupus.com. See you all next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Take care.